Thank you all for joining me on a Saturday morning. I woke up today, it was kind of foggy, but looks like it's going to be another nice day. I'm so thankful. I think spring is finally here. Thanks for joining me for creating your life roadmap. I did this class Thursday in person. It was great. We really had a good time. So you guys, I already had my test class, so you guys get the already practiced thing. So here we go. Today I just have a little bit of education to start with, just talking about what a life roadmap is. I'm gonna give you some examples. I'm going to give you some time to create your own life roadmap. Hopefully, we'll have some nice music in the background. And then we're going to take some time to reflect, kind of look back at that, maybe even share if you're comfortable. So let's get ready. I want to take just a minute to do a little meditation, a little bit of mindfulness. I don't know about you guys, but I was running around like a crazy woman before this started, making sure everything was in place, telling my family to be quiet, and all those important things. So let's just take a minute because we're going to be doing some soul searching and thinking about things. So let's just put ourselves in the right mind frame. So if you feel comfortable closing your eyes, go ahead and close your eyes. If not, just kind of soften your eyes, maybe put your gaze down, and just think about relaxing. You might have a lot of thoughts going through your mind, things that happened before jumped on this meeting, things that are happening after this, and that's fine. Let's just kind of push them to the side. They are there. We can acknowledge that, but we're going to put those all on pause for the moment. So I'm going to just take you through a quick body scan to relax. So think about relaxing those creases in your forehead. Think about relaxing your cheeks and your jaw. We hold a lot of tension in our jaw and our neck. Kind of think about just relaxing that. Relax your neck down into your back. Relax your neck down into your shoulders. And feel your shoulders and your arms drop a little bit. And then feel from your elbows all the way down to your wrists and the tip of your fingers. Feel those relax as well. You can even maybe just gently wiggle your fingers as you feel them just relaxing and the tension going out of them. And then thinking about your torso all the way down to your hips, you're sitting just firmly, comfortably in the chair where you're seated. And then from your hips all the way to your knees, they're relaxed and you again feel safe and comfortable in the spot where you are. And then from your knees to your feet, you feel grounded. Even if your feet aren't touching the floor, wherever they are, you are resting peacefully, and those muscles all feel relaxed. And now I want you to kind of wiggle your toes, wiggle your fingers, start bringing your eyes open again. And here you are. You are here and you're ready to go on this journey with me. So let's jump right in. What is a life roadmap? So, just like a map is a guide, this is going to be kind of like a guide through your life. This is not going to be like your greatest artistic project ever. This really isn't an art project. This is just a reflective exercise for you. Nobody has to see it but you. If you want to share it with us, that would be great. You want to share it with somebody else, that's fine too. But really keep in mind, this is for you. This is for you to kind of think about your life and the journey you've been on. So there's a lot of different things this is called. If you were to Google it, you might hear spiritual roadmap, life mapping for goal setting, a life journey, a timeline. Some people even do things called mind map or vision board. That's a little more forward focused. We're going to look more at today and what led you up to today, more so than the future pieces, but they're all very similar things. And I'm going to come back to that idea of a spiritual roadmap and talk a little more about what that means. But essentially, what we're making is something that records pivotal moments through a specific time. I'm going to show you a bunch of examples. They can be linear, it can be meandering, it can be bullet points, it can be bubbles. There is no right or wrong way to do this. And remember, we're not creating something to go in the Louvre. We're creating something to be just for us. And our goal ultimately today is to be able to step back and see our life's journey from a broader view. So we need to create stories to make order of disorder and find meaning in the meaningless. I don't know who Kathleen Gilbert was, but I thought that was a great quote from her. And that's kind of what we're doing. We're not making up stories, we're telling the story, we're creating a story from our life that we lived, or maybe it's a period of our life, maybe it's a bigger view of our life. And it helps us kind of understand some things. So this is going to be a pictorial delineation of your life journey. It's going to illustrate kind of where you came from, where you are now, helps you think about where you're going to go. And you'll hopefully be able to visualize some patterns, some strengths, some resources, maybe insights as we talk about this after we're done. So I did say I was going to talk a little bit about this idea that maybe it's a spiritual roadmap, and I want to define spirituality. So, what is spirituality? So, the director of the George Washington Institute for Spirituality and Health says that the word spirituality means spirituality is the aspect of humanity that refers to the way individuals seek and express meaning and purpose. So, notice it's nothing to do with religion, or maybe faith is a part of that, but not necessarily. It's the way we seek to express meaning and purpose. It's the way we experience our connectedness to the moment, to self, to others, to nature, to the significant and the sacred. And that's a little bit what we are doing today. So we could say this is the spiritual roadmap. Spirituality is very inner, it's very individual. It helps us foster the meaning and purpose of our life. It's also the place where we find the capacity and the potential for growth. And spirituality is also something that's like it's transcendent, it's something outside of ourselves. So you might feel this is a little bit of a spiritual experience as well. And that's great if you do. So we're going to start with a little warm up. So hopefully, like I said, you have pen, paper ready to go. You might already have a lot of ideas kind of going through your head with all the things I have said. So I want you to just start jotting down. If you want to organize it somehow, that's fine, but no need to organize it. We're going to come back and kind of work on that later. But start listing things that are already kind of floating around in your mind, things that were important moments in your life. So some things to think about, maybe spiritual, physical, or emotional things that have happened to you, jobs that you've had, changes that you've had in your job life, when you were born, when other significant births happened on your period of life, maybe deaths that were really influential to you. Um, I already said the word turning points. Maybe there were big achievements. Maybe there were travels that you took that were very significant, inspirational, maybe challenges. Maybe if you moved. And so anything you can think of, and you can go all the way back to the time you were born, think about the different decades of your life. I'm going to just be quiet for a couple minutes and let you just start making a list and think about that. Okay, good. So hopefully that kind of got you started thinking. If you think of other things you want to add as I'm talking, no problem. Go ahead and do that. But we are going to come back to this in a minute. So, hold on, I can't get my, there we go. So I'm going to show some examples. I realize it's small, and depending on what how big your computer screen is, it might be really small. Um, but
Erin,
just to kind of, yes,
I'm sorry. Bef before we get further,
yeah.
what if you find that what you've written so far is kind of like depressing? I mean, like it's like I don't know why I'm dwelling on like hard periods of time rather than like all the blessings, you know?
Okay. So that's a great point. And that came up last time we did the class as well. So you're not the first person to think that way, because we think of, oh yeah, monumental times in my life were maybe negative things. So when we kind of start actually putting the thing together, I want you to think about, maybe start with a structure of the happy things. Like, make a point to think of what were some positive things in my life, and then fit those other things, the downs, in there. We'll put them as the ups and downs, and you'll see as we see some examples how people represented there are both ups and downs in our journey. So, but thank you for sharing that. I think we do tend to right away go to those things, right, that are like, oh, this happened, this happened. So, but I encourage you, as we start thinking about what were the positive things, we can put those in there too. Um, All right, so let me jump into some examples and show you. So this one they literally made like a road. Um, and I don't know if you can see my little arrow, but the each kind of paver of this road in between these lines was like a decade. So the first one was like kindergarten, the second one was like going to grade school. They see the moving truck here. They had to move when they were young. This was graduating from high school. The next section was going to college. I think it was Yale, they said here. The next square was their first job. They have a little picture of the newspaper and the computer. They were a journalist. This is so small, I can't tell what the next section is, but they moved on to another job. And then they had some other pictures here that were meaning to them of what this phase was. And then I love that they put the road just kind of going off and it says to the future. So that's one example of how you could kind of picture it as a road. We had someone on Thursday that made it like a road and actually drew a car for each of the kind of significant things along the road. And she even had like it coming back under like an overpass. And so I thought that was really creative. So that's one way to think about it, literally like a road. Um, this is another kind of like a road or a meandering path. This person used like some cutout pictures to do represent different spots along the way, but they were born. This, believe it or not, that's a popcorn popper, and they burned themselves on the popcorn popper as a young child, and that was very significant and memorable to them. This was a picture of their elementary school. They broke their hand when they were young. They went to middle school. This was actually a picture of a cast on their arm. They had another injury. Played volleyball, went to high school, loved watermelon, went to college at BYU, got their first job at a middle school, went back for more education at University of Utah, came out and got a job at another school, had another break of a finger. It seems like those were significant points on this person's life. Had another job at a university, got their first motorcycle. Couldn't quite figure out what this picture was, and then went on to teaching at another school. And then this I loved at the end, they said under construction, who knows what's next. So that's another kind of way to think about how you could kind of put things in your life. This one was someone who took the spiritual roadmap idea literally. By the way, these are all things I pulled from the internet. These are not from people I know. Um, but I liked this. I wanted to show this one because the x-axis, the horizontal axis, is actually each of those ticks is a year in their life. So they started at 15 and it goes up to 50 here at the other end. And then the y-axis, the vertical is above their line were high points, and then below were low points or hard times, as they labeled it here. And they've even placed these different events kind of above and below at like how high or how low they were. So they had something, this was whatever this was a happy thing. This was a low thing. This is a pretty happy thing. Of this is really low. This is really low. And then other happy things. So they were kind of up and down. So this kind of speaks to what the question before about maybe I have low things, but I think if you start thinking about the high things, it'll be interesting to see how they kind of like all fit together. So that might be one way you might want to creatively think about how to represent the ups and downs. Um, this one was done by a teenager. Actually, I have a feeling the teenager didn't actually do it because it's such a great drawing, but I loved how they did this. They used a balloon with a long string, and they started like they were born in 2001, and they remember a first pony ride, finding and helping a bird that had hit the window, getting a cat, went to Canada, took tap lessons, rode a two-wheeler and learned how to swim, went canoeing and got 10 baskets in a row, started at a new school. Their grandma died. Yeah, grandma died. They went to the Grand Canyon and they got the chicken pox. I'm curious if those happened at the same time because that would be very memorable if you were on vacation and you had the chicken pox. They got a new car in 2013, and the person got all A's. In 2014, got a new baby sister and got braces. And then around the age 14, it looks like they moved to a new house, went to a new school, started in a new town. So This was a very, much more simple kind of look, but I thought this was a great pictorial view for someone who's a little more artistic in drawing drawings. This is just kind of a silly representation, but very simple. This person was born. They had some pictures that represented their school years. They had pictures that represented their work years. They feel they're right about getting close to death, not quite there. So maybe you want to think about something in that way. And then again, I'm sorry, these are really small and hard to see on the Zoom screen, but just to give you an idea, the one on the left is, it says my journey. And this first top arc is the childhood. And they had a lot of little pictures representing different things in their life. They were born in Texas. They had some other pictures of things they liked and played with. And then going to college. And high school and then moving. You can see the St. Louis Arch here. They moved to St. Louis for the first job. It says here adulting. So this lower arc of the path is their adulthood, several different jobs, recognitions, and things that happen in their life, then retirement. And then it says the fun starts. So they're kind of looking forward to this taking off in a rocket ship of life is in retirement. The one on the right here is just a short period. This person, it says start here at the bottom corner, and it was 2011. They're really struggling. I think it actually says pain and despair. I will do anything to get help. And then they find someone that's helping them. They have kind of a downturn here. They took some trainings and felt much better about themselves. It's very meandering up and down, and then they're up again. They went on a spiritual retreat, committing to sobriety. And then there's this like swirling coming down, distracted by some other bad habits. And then the swirling coming up and realizing, oh, all of this is growth in my life. And then kind of had a downturn again. I thought this was funny. At the bottom of this downturn was Netflix binge of terrible TV. So, not saying Netflix binging is a bad thing, but maybe if it's not, if it's terrible TV, maybe could be a down point in your life. They also mention on here triggered by some old traumas, but then they're on the upswing here where it says you are here, and they said found my peeps, which I love. So they recognize they're on the upswing. That was a good example. And then here's another very literal one. If you're a very literal thinker, maybe this is kind of speaks to you. Again, we have this line through the middle that was kind of like a median line. And this person very simple graphics represented. They were homeschooled, they went to high school, and they labeled this as the lowlands of teenage angst that didn't feel like a very good time in their life. But then they hit this mountain of personal growth. They were in the Army, they went to University of Michigan, got their MBA, they had kids. This was, as they said, the precipice of self-awareness. But then they entered what they called the Valley of Loneliness. Looks like a consulting job. It was not great for them. They got divorced. And then they're in this trials of confusion, a lot of up and down, up and down. Um, and they are taking a sabbatical. But the positive thing is they've ended this roadmap by saying, like, I feel like I'm in a cycle of renewal. All right, and then I think this is my last example. This one is this person was very wordy, so maybe they think more by using words instead of pictures or maybe lines or graphics. But I'm showing this example because they showed three kind of sections, and each cover a couple year period in their life. So this first one was 1989 to 1995, and they title it up here, "Leaving a Legacy." So they talk about all those words there, talking about their job and kind of things going on in their life. And then they transition into this middle section, which up at the top, they titled something alone with me. Living alone with me is what I think it was. So this is from 95 to 98. They went on a sabbatical. There's this picture of the mountains here. They went to a beach, and I think it was Sausalito, and just some exploring and life searching that they did during that time. And then this next final section, I love this. It was return to my job in New York. So it's kind of this transition into the next block of life, which they labeled as 1999 till the present. And they said, I'm here. So now what? And so a lot of words and thinking about what's going on. I love the picture of the door next to which they wrote, doors are opening and doors are closing. Sometimes we feel like that in our life. So they were able to kind of think about some different blocks of things that happened then. Oh, I'm sorry, that wasn't my last example. I do have another one. So this is a very literal one. This isn't, it's a literal timeline. It's not positive on the top and negative on the bottom. It was just she went through and kind of crafted some things in her life. So this person was born in 75. She talked about her elementary school, doing a community service program, going to college, being in a sorority, some different travels she had, different jobs, um, a solo vacation, um, let's see, getting laid off from a job, cutting her hair. That's what that picture was, the big chop, she labeled it. She had an emergency hospital stay with surgery, and then mentions this NGO job that she's now in. So able to kind of look at things linear and how the different steps of her life. Very simple, but a nice way to see how her life journey was going. And maybe that one was mine. Yep, that's the last one. So um, I did this project myself it was a continuing education session I went to. And I thought about my life in decades and kind of taking each decade and kind of significant things that happened in each decade. And what was really interesting to me after I used kind of a meandering road, and sort of like the first one we saw with these ideas of every block of time along the road. And what was interesting to me was then looking back and seeing how, I had a very stable childhood with wonderful parents, and went off to college and had some experiences then, got married, started having kids, and it wasn't until I think it was the 30s, 40s, even the 40s and 50s when I started seeing, oh, this is when I actually started thinking for myself and not just having the same beliefs or um, doing the same things just because it's what my parents did. So I never really thought about that until I kind of looked back at the progression of my life through the decades and how the different experiences in my life changed me. So I mention this because now, as we're getting ready to actually put our roadmap together, I'm going to suggest some ways you can kind of organize what we've already written during our warm up, how we can kind of build on that to then create our own map. So you might want to do as I did when I did it myself, break your life into year periods, maybe every 10 years, maybe every 5 years. Um, and I will suggest you don't necessarily have to do birth all the way to today. Maybe you want to just focus on a 10-year period. Maybe you noticed you wrote down a lot of things that just happened in the last 20 years. So maybe you want to kind of focus on that. You could think, if you're going to think broadly over your whole life, maybe you want to divide things up into stages instead of thinking 10-year buckets, maybe think childhood, teenager, young adulthood, and so on. And then think about, how do you want to draw it? Which one of those examples were you like, oh, I could kind of see myself in that kind of pictorial way. So maybe it's a path, maybe it's a literal road, maybe it's just a timeline, maybe it's just boxes of text, however you want to kind of represent things. One suggestion is to, like that last one that was just a timeline, she didn't really have the up and down necessarily. Maybe you want to mark things positive and negative to kind of help you to see those. Um, think about some things maybe you hadn't thought about when we did our warm up list. What are some maybe trials or experiences or how you coped through things? Think about visuals like hills, bumps, potholes, rains, clouds, valleys, reefs. But then maybe also there's spiritual things, significant things, peak moments where there was awe, joy, or insight. Again, we talked before about maybe we thought about all the negative things, but also think about what were those other positive things that kind of fit in there. When did you feel hopeful about yourself? When did you experience love or connectedness to something bigger? So be creative. There is no pressure to be artistic. This is just for you. Um, and so have fun with it. So it is now time. Hopefully, you have a blank piece of paper in front of you. There is no judgment here, no right or wrong way to do it. Hopefully, you have some great ideas. I am going to try to get some music playing. I'm going to give you about 40 minutes. Sounds like a long time, but believe it or not, once you start getting into this, it might not be long enough, but that'll at least get things kind of going on the paper. And then we'll take some time after that to maybe share and talk a little bit. But please, this is just for you. Don't feel self-conscious. Don't feel like, oh, mine is terrible. Just really think about what we talked about and be creative for you. So I will be quiet. I'll get our music going and go ahead and get to work. And if you have any questions along the way, please feel free to ask me. Oh, great. Everyone's taken time to make their roadmap, whether you finished or not. We're going to take a minute to reflect and think about kind of what you discovered so far in this part of the journey, whether you finished or not. And in just a minute, I'm going to ask you if you want to share if you noticed patterns or connections, if the map told you something about yourself, maybe you saw ways you coped or strengths or assets. And most importantly, did you see something where maybe you see hope for the future? So I'm going to uh, so here we go. Hopefully, you learn something about yourself and are feeling positive about where your journey is going. So I do encourage you next steps, whether you're sitting by the pool, like my little picture here, or just sitting in your home today, finish what you started. Or maybe think about creating another map, maybe zero in on a specific period of time that was particularly congested or had a lot going on. And you can kind of have the same, maybe understanding, a little better understanding and seeing that time in your life. And then take time to reflect. This was a lot. We covered a lot of ups and downs and things of life. So take some time to kind of digest it and reflect on it. And be kind to yourself. What you made is beautiful because it's you. And you may have brought up some emotional things. So be good to yourself today. And I thank you for joining me. It has been a privilege to share this with you.